Welcome to Transformations, interviewing people changing our world. I'm your host, Diane J. Shaver, and as you've noticed by now, everyone I interview is so different, one from the other, but what they have in common is a passion and a commitment to make this a better world, and I hope they inspire you. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with someone who's doing something that's pretty unique on a lot of levels, and he's part of the trend of youth creating change. The way he's doing it is combining business and sustainability. But I want you to listen to the story from the man himself. So please meet the founder of Remu Apparel, a very different concept in both sourcing and selling. So please meet Jose Chiboga. Welcome, Jose.
Hello, Diane. How are you? Nice to meet. Nice to see you.
Yeah, finally you're doing it.
Yeah, finally we're able to make it.
Yeah, your home is in Quito, Ecuador, where you're talking with us now. How did you end up in College of Charleston here in the South, of all places? What brought you here?
It's a pretty random story, but one of my best friends here in Ecuador, he's half American, half Ecuadorian, and his mom is from a little town in South Carolina called Lugov.
Oh, wow.
And one thing led to the next, and she recommended that Charleston to me, and I went to visit, and I fell in love with the place and the people. So pretty much that's why.
Here you are here for a while anyway. And I read that the idea for this company came to you in a very strange way as you're sitting in class and looking at your own jeans. Can you tell us that story? It's pretty funny.
I have to admit, I wasn't paying attention to what I was supposed to be paying attention to. But yeah, I was in an ethics class for the computer science department. And I remember I was dozing off class. I looked down to my pants and I see a massive hole in a place you don't want to have a hole in your pants. And so I was like, no, come on again. And because that happened to me quite often. And I got this frustration of knowing that I had to throw away another pair of jeans for a little hole relatively little, and nothing between this frustration and a lot of things that were going on in my head during that time. I looked in front of me, and the girl in front was wearing a denim jacket, and I started looking and analyzing at how the patterns of the pants work and the patterns of the jackets work. And I came up with the idea of making denim jackets out of used jeans that people, instead of them throwing them away, using them as raw material for the jackets.
Did you have any artistic background? Because the conceptual part of that is pretty artistic. So I'm just curious.
I did, actually. I've always been super into art. My mom's an artist, and that side of the family is pretty artistic. And I actually went into College of Charleston as a double major in studio art and computer science. So yeah,
it worked really well. I mean, it came into a good combination of things here. So one of the things that struck me about your journey is that you were looking for a different model of business, and you went to different countries. What was wrong with the original model, and what were you seeking?
Well, originally the first idea, let's say, was I love traveling. I was born and raised in the Andes, and so there's this spirit of being outside and going to the mountains and exploring and stuff. And me and a group of friends, we wanted to make this into a company and share it with the people that want to be part of this lifestyle that we have here in Ecuador. And so the great idea, or that what we thought it was a great idea, was to get those travel hammocks. There are little hammocks that get folded into a pouch, and you could hang them wherever. So it's great when you go camping or where you go for a picnic. And our first idea was to plant, make these hammocks in China, and to plant trees in the Amazon for each of the for each of the hammocks made. And so we thought it was a great idea. We were gonna reforest the Amazon this way, but soon we realized we were doing more harm than we were doing good for the environment.
So do you see companies now being more aware of climate change, of the environment, of sustainability? Because you seem to be leading part of that trend.
I think for sure. I mean, even in a country like Ecuador, which we're a small country, there's a lot of problems like in any country here. But I do see people definitely making at least the effort, at least talking about it, which I think is a great starting point. Of course, there's still a lot we all have to do and to put into in order to make this situation way better. But there's also another thing that I think it's important to talk about and mention, and there's a lot of companies that use sustainability as marketing rather than to actually, you know what I mean? I mean, and that partly, and I have to admit to myself that that's what we were doing at the beginning with the hammocks. I mean, we were using this term called greenwashing a company. When you sell yourself as doing something sustainable, but you're not really doing. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more like a marketing thing rather than something you're actually doing good for the environment. So I think a lot of people can fall into that category, and that's dangerous.
Yeah. How do we tell as consumers? Is there some way we can tell the difference, or is there some research we can do? How do we find out?
I think usually people because of this problem, people who are actually doing what they're doing to improve someone's life or to improve the environment, they're cautious about like being transparent about their processes, their manufacturing, their supply, like their suppliers. So I think usually you can find it on their website. I mean, you know, if it's kind of shady, kind of gray area, things are not transparent. Maybe, I mean, I'm not saying everyone is not doing it or they're trying to take advantage of people, but it does happen. And I think as consumers, we have to be careful uh, about what we buy and try to learn a little bit more about what goes on our body and yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. So what is it that your company is doing? How are you being sustainable? What different levels are you reaching in that area?
So for me, sustainability actually is a because it's, and I don't know if it's a misconception or what, how it's been sold, but sustainability is usually perceived as an environmental thing, which is it's one of the three legs of sustainability. But there's usually two really important areas in sustainability that people don't really talk about, and that's the social aspect of it and the economical aspect of it. And when after we moved and we shifted from the hammock idea, we really wanted to integrate the three legs of sustainability into the company. So what we do is we take the massive amount of waste and textile waste that exists in the world, and we transform it into long-lasting products. And how we do this transformation process is we work with communities of women in my country, and we bring our studios into their communities so they can be both mothers and like provide for their families at the same time without having to sacrifice the other one. And we have this whole circle, you know, we have the reduction of textile waste and using already made, already existing raw materials instead of using more resources and stuff like that. We're giving jobs to people that otherwise would have really hard time obtaining a job, and we're giving them the opportunity to bring their families into to a better place, and that's the social and the economical aspect closes the circle.
So how do you see this impacting these women? How do you know that you are creating this for them? What do you see happening?
For me, it's crazy to see, even in us. Well, it sounds small, but for me, it's huge, and I think eventually it'll be big for my country and hopefully for others. It's even the way the interaction within the household. I mean, once the woman becomes the provider, the main provider of the household, the dynamics change completely. And I was just having a conversation with two of the seamstresses the other day, and it's crazy to see how the the fact that we're putting them in the spotlight because we perceive them as the superstars of our company, and them being in magazines and them earning what they earn now, that has changed their view, like their community's view on them completely. I mean, people are like, and they told me, I mean, it's been amazing to have people in my community like joke about now we're famous and stuff, but really like the respect and the different way and interaction that we have with the people within our community has been insane.
Yeah.
So that's great for me. That's the way we measure, which is hard to measure, but for me that's already little signs that what we're doing has really created an impact in this woman.
Are you trying to expand that in your country, i.e., are you going around talking about how to do this in different industries, or is it just early days yet?
We're still in early days, and I think another thing we have to be careful with, and this is personal choice, but I much rather have a really impactful, well, impactful impact or a deep impact in a handful of people than have a really tiny impact in a lot of people. You know what I mean? So I think it's really important to decide what kind of impact you want to create and start small, and then if it works, continue replicating, and of course go morphing the concept and the model to be as impactful as possible. So we're trying to stay with a handful of people now, really create an impact with them, and then start adding more people, and hopefully create a wave. And what you said, if we go around talking about, we really believe in actions speak louder than words. And of course, it's important to tell people how this works and stuff. But if I feel once people see that we are able to have a profitable company, doing what we do, having the processes, transparency, and the high wages, everything that we have, I think that will be really powerful for people, and people will start not mimicking but replicating the model, because we really believe in the model.
You know, I agree with you. I mean, it has to come from, you're still so early, but a lot of people I interview have done things, and people have seen the impact of what they've done, which is exactly what you said. And from that, they can go around and help other people set up different businesses. And you're probably way too early to do that yet, but I like that you're thinking about it at some point. So, are you seeing your company growing now? What stage are you at? I mean, you're pretty new.
Yeah. Well, so we've been pretty much a year and a half in business, so we're relatively pretty young. I mean, we actually have just gone through the third phase of the company, because we reached to a point where we really took the time to analyze the suppliers that we were working with, all the materials that we were working with, and we realized that one of the main materials we were using that was being sold to us by the suppliers as natural fibers and alpaca wool and stuff was actually acrylic. And this sounds like nothing really important, but for us it was really crucial moment, because we, of course, we're promoting sustainability. We want to be the most natural, the most sustainable possible. So in order to actually put the products to the standard that we wanted them to be, we had to change completely. I mean, the cost of our actual products, I mean, went up drastically, and that meant for us a huge change. But to go back to your question, I mean, yeah, we're early stages. Even though in our first year we were able to reach 37 countries, but still, what I was talking earlier, we want to create deeper impact rather than scattered impact with low importance, you know.
But what you said about maybe the idea of a product not being what it was supposed to be, not being very important, that's key, that's crucial. So, I mean, for you to source the right places, and I'm sure that's part of being new, and keep setting up channels for suppliers and so forth. So that's a whole piece of it. So has your company been at break even yet?
Yeah, we actually had a interesting model, because at the beginning, again, talking about the three legs of sustainability, we thought it wasn't sustainable to start a company with a huge loan and to start red, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what we did, instead of going to a bank or going to family or people that could invest in our idea, because it was only an idea by that time, we launched our company in a crowdfunding platform called Kickstarter. So that was great for us, because we were able to raise enough money to start operating without debt. So our break-even point was really low. since the beginning. And yeah, I mean, as you grow and start getting new things, your break-even point goes a little bit up. But yeah, we're past that point, thankfully now.
I think you keyed into something that's really critical, and we're taught in this country about going into debt for business. And companies have sort of cycles where they go to a bank and then they pay it back, and then they go to the bank for the next cycle. So I think the model that you've created is so much better. And again, that's part of sustainability, because this huge debt is a really big part of business in this country.
Yeah, I think debt is a huge reality in the US, but in a lot of, like, many countries around the world, that's the sad reality. And but it's awesome because now we're given so many tools, and thanks to technology, things that, and it's funny because my dad and I always talk about this, and he just, it's weird to him because the way we do business now is so different than they used to do it when he was my age. And yeah, I mean, it's really cool, but I think people have to really understand that and take advantage of all the easy ways that we have now as young people. Because what you said before, maybe I had to go get a big loan from the bank, and probably as a 22-year-old, I would have never done it, you know. So yeah, it's really cool how there's so many new ways that we can impact others, create businesses, and yeah.
Yeah. How did your launch go? You just launched your new line the 15th of this month, or last month, sorry, November. How did that go?
It was insane. It was super cool. We were able to launch in Los Angeles in a store in Melrose Avenue, which is a really cool, trendy street in LA. So it was awesome. I keep describing it, and the word that I use is surreal, because for being like 2 years ago, just a crazy idea that came out in a class, to now walking around Melrose Avenue and seeing our jackets in display, it was crazy. So I mean, so many emotions, a great reception from the people. Of course, as everything, it's a challenge, especially now that we, as I told you, changed the prices. We had to change the demographics, target market, but I mean, it's been great, honestly, really, really amazing.
That's wonderful. Did you ever doubt that this was going to succeed? Did you always know somehow, some way you were going to make it work?
I'm pretty optimistic. I'm not gonna lie. So maybe that helped. And I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm super young and I still haven't seen enough. But I think that there's always ways to get yourself out of bad situations. So yeah.
But that's one of the key pieces, that everyone who's made it really big, if you listen to what they've said, they never doubt it. Things come up, they find ways around them. And it sounds like that's your mindset. And that's why it worked. Because, I mean, a year and a half is such a young company, but you're doing really well. So one of the things I was interested in finding out about, there's a different kind of marketing that you're involved in. It's a company that has like little pop-up places. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So actually, it's this store in LA that I was talking about.
Yeah.
It's super cool concept. They're trying to completely change the way that retail works. So they get new companies like ours, or companies that are trying to do things differently, and they create these really experiential stores where you go and the dressing rooms adapt to the products and the brand, and the people that work there know exactly the story about your company. uh, Last week they had a bus with our jackets driving around Los Angeles. So they're doing, really trying to do things differently. So it's super cool.
Yeah. But that, I think, as a country here anyway, we need to start doing things very differently. We're sort of entrenched in the way we do things. So to hear that happening in LA is really wonderful. And for you to research different ways of doing things, I think is really, really critical. So where do you see your company going? What's your vision for Remu?
I really I wanted to become, and we're gonna become, I want to become a leader in outerwear for of sustainability, you know. So I think that's been a problem, and maybe it's because the people that run clothing companies are usually way more into design and into, but I want to build clothes that everyone wants to, it's easy to wear, because I think sometimes concepts are amazing but things are really hard to wear. I mean, you see that and it's like, wow, that looks super cool in a super fashion model, but no one in a really, like, it would be hard to wear on a day to day. So we want to create products for people that live in a city but enjoy the outdoors, and they want to, it's the jacket or the shirt or the pair of pants that they're going to wear when they're in their home, when they're outside with their family. But we want something that people can actually wear, and it's of course made of the best quality and the most transparent and impactful way possible.
But I think you're onto something. I mean, people are dressing more and more casually, and couture, if you know anything about it, is really impossible to wear. And that's why people who wear couture weigh about 3 pounds, because there's no other way to accommodate that kind of thing. So what do you see as being things you want to add to your line, and how big do you want this to be?
Well, honestly, for now, we want to stick to jackets because we want to be really good at doing something,
Yeah.
and then of course expand. But eventually, I would love to have. I love flannels. I'm usually wearing a flannel, like right now, and and yeah, I mean, but we of course we have a really a hard challenge, let's say, because of our mission and what we're trying to accomplish. All the materials have to be or natural or recycled or repurposed. So I want to create a whole line of sustainable clothing, sorry, that fits our values and our standards. And with that being said, button downs, pants, I don't know, who knows, shoes someday, but a whole line that you can eventually have a whole closet that is made out of sustainable apparel and ethically made by communities of women in Ecuador.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's so good on so many different levels, which is why I wanted to interview you. So what do you see in terms of how your price points are perceived? Because your things are not inexpensive. They are priced right for what they are. But people are used to going to discount stores and so forth. So your market's going to be very different.
Yeah, agree. I think we've had this phenomenon in the world right now, and it's led by fast fashion companies. You could Zara, H&M, and many others, and they've really altered the perspective that we have on clothing. So after you go into one of these stores and you see a T-shirt is $5, a pair of pants is $15, $10. I mean, now that I see it, I'm like, how can you possibly have a pair of clothes, a piece of clothing that is $5? I mean, I really don't understand mathematically how that works. Nonetheless, that they're taking advantage of the people that work there. They're using really harmful materials for the environment. So what you said, like, I think really take back that perspective and understand that we've been, I don't know how to understand, like, but yeah, that our perspective of prices of clothing has been completely been messed up, because and that's what we're also trying to we try to communicate that a pair of clothing is should be worth what the materials are worth, and fair paying to the people that work there. And yeah, I mean, and it's a challenge, of course, especially in a country like Ecuador, to really make people understand or educate people on the issue of pricing is a huge deal in clothing, and we should all be more transparent about our prices and how we got there, and really make sure that the people and the suppliers and everything involved in our supply chain, they're being paid what it's worth, and that makes the product being worth what it's actually worth.
So this is really a sense of educating consumers, because they're not educated. And I'm one of them too. I mean, I hadn't thought about this in such depth until all the climate change stuff started to be in our face. So how can we educate people better, do you think?
I love this question because, of course, now when you hear me speak, I look like this person that I've always been like this. I've always tried to track down who made my clothes, what materials, and everything. But actually growing up, and 3 years ago, you would have asked me, and I was like, of course, buy the $5 t-shirt. I mean, why would you ever buy a $40 t-shirt if you have a $5 t-shirt in H&M? But I think that's what it's powerful, that once I saw the issues within the clothing industry, I was able to, like, I was really impressed about the problems behind it. And now I understand why we should really pay the price that something's worth. So I think exposing it, and because what you said, I mean, you don't know something until you don't research about it, you don't see it with your own eyes. So I think that's part of our responsibility as a company, really to bring to light the realities, the harsh realities that this industry hides behind fancy logos and really good looking models, you know, because there's a lot of messed up things happening in the industry.
Yeah. And it's a huge industry, so a lot of that can go on. So what can you do as a company to educate people? Do you have a little brochure? Do you have something that you can give customers when they buy something, there's a story that goes with it?
Well, yeah, I mean, for example, in our product, well, in our website is probably the best place.
Right.
We've outlined more how we're trying to do things differently, be transparent about our supply chain and all that. Of course, as you said, like, there's always ways that you can be better, and we're working to be more informative towards the people that we can reach about the issue. But through social media, we do it a lot as well. And for example, each of our products comes with an impact card. So it's inside, it's sold, and it says, for example, this jacket saved 1,800 gallons of water. It was made out of, you know. So we're trying to at least make it a conversational piece. So when you are out in dinner with your friends or something, people start talking about it, and it starts becoming a mainstream thing that people start talking about, and hopefully becomes a trend. I really do see clothing as the next, because, you know, a couple of years ago, and now it's still a thing, that everyone is obsessed of what they eat, where they came from, bar to table, tree to table, all of that. So I think eventually we're shifting towards the same concept in clothing, and I really hope so, because I think it's a huge issue right now that we have to be part of. And yeah, I mean, we have to do better informative content for people to really understand the issue.
But I think the tag with that number on there is wonderful, because that's part of the education. I think that's what I was kind of driving at before when I was saying to you about going out and making people more aware. So however you can do it, and the tag on the clothing is a perfect way, because it does help people to understand. And I think there's a place where people hear information, but to actually put it together in a way that it impacts their personal life, it's that step, and that takes a while sometimes. So the thing that you're doing is making people aware, which is wonderful. And I notice big companies like Patagonia are starting to talk about sustainability and use recycled things. So I think they're a step in the right direction. But do you see other companies that are sustainable, something like yours or like Patagonia, or do you see that happening in other areas?
Yeah, it's actually super exciting to me that a couple of months ago, the big clothing companies signed an agreement that they're gonna all do the best efforts to become sustainable. Like, every big commitment like that, I never know how real it is, but at least the fact that these big companies are leading towards sustainability is a huge relief at the end of the day, and exciting to see what they're coming up with. I saw H&M just came up with a huge initiative the other day, and I'm talking specifically about these companies because they are the ones who led the fast fashion the fast fashion movement, and they created, at the end of the day, this concept and this business model, and now they're taking responsibility and doing something about it. So I think that is really impressive, because at the end of the day, they're making a ton of money doing what they're doing, and so accepting to yourself that it's not the right thing to do and changing it, I think that that's respectable for sure.
Which is wonderful. Do you see yourself as having your own stores at some point? Is that what's part of the vision there?
I don't really know. Eventually, I would like to. For now, we want to stick to, of course, direct to consumer via our website. But there's a couple of things that we could do by having our stores in certain places that would allow us to be even more sustainable.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's something to be seen in the future. But I would love to have, because in Ecuador, for example, all of our clothes, if for example something happens to a jacket of yours, it rips or something, we'll fix it for free. Of course, when we're talking about a different country, the logistics of that are way more challenging.
Yeah.
So but eventually it would be super cool to be able to do that. In Ecuador, we have another like a program where we people can donate their old jeans, and we'll give them discounts on their jackets and stuff like that. And again, the logistics of implementing those programs in different countries are very, very challenging. But who knows? Hopefully, in a year or two, we'll be able to establish those kind of programs in the U.S. for sure.
I mean, it's remarkable what you've done so far. So, I mean, who knows in 3 years where you could be? It could be amazing. So, how big is your team? I know it's not just you.
No, yeah, no. It's actually funny because the like let's say in management, it's my best friend, my cousin, and me. That we're the ones who started the company. And then on the manufacturing side of it, we're like we're not a ton of people really. It's six, like 7, 8 people, including the people that make the buttons and stuff like that. So we're as I was saying, we're still a small team. We're trying to create deep impact, and then we'll scale. But we're actually looking right now. We're about to hire 2 new people into management within. We want to do it before the end of this year. So
Because you're the vision keeper, which means that you cannot be tied down with details. So that's one of the pieces. So how many women are involved in making the clothing, and are they in different parts of Ecuador, or are they?
Yeah, right now we work, as I said, like just with 3 studios, like 3 little like workshops,
Yeah.
and they're in the outskirts of Quito. They are relatively close to one another. I think one from like the farthest point from the like 2 of them is like 40 minutes away. So it's relatively in the surrounding areas of Ecuador. Again, we want to expand this model to different parts of Ecuador eventually. But yeah, I mean, it's working really good, because one of the concerns of using multiple workshops was to how can we maintain the quality, and I feel we've cracked that issue now. So we would be ready to start adding new workshops by the end of by next year.
So is there someone in your company that knows about sewing, or do you have to rely on the ability of the people that are you laughing because you have no idea? Do you know what a sewing needle looks like?
No, yeah. I mean, as in everything, you don't know anything until you start learning. And of course, for us, I mean, it's been an intense year of everything, but more than anything of learning, you know. So yeah, we've had to learn so much. But that's why I was laughing, because the first time that we got into, like, we met this woman and we were like explaining what they thought that we were crazy. But because they were like, these people want us to make denim jackets out of pants, they're crazy. And yeah, I mean, I've done my own sewing. I almost sewed my own hand once, the first time that I tried. But yeah, I mean, no, we do rely a lot on the women that work with us, and that's why we've created such a huge connection, and we have a great relationship. We go have lunch at their house, like we bring lunch to their communities, to their houses. I was just, well, last year I was made godfather of one of the daughters of one of the seamstresses. So we do have this crazy connection, and yeah, I think it's part because we rely so much on them and they rely so much on us, that it's a co-creative process where we learn from each other and we create together at the end of the day.
but that's part of the model that you're creating. And that's part of moving out of this dehumanization and of manufacturing and so forth. So that's a critical piece. It's funny, sometimes the things that don't seem important when you're starting out become key pieces. So that sense of community is a very critical piece. And I see that happening in many different areas. So are you aware of that? You probably are very aware how important that is.
No, for sure. And that's one of the things that we didn't know much about sewing, but we knew we wanted to create what we wanted to create. And yeah, I mean, we do little things that we think are really important for the company, but more than for the company are really important for the women that work with us. For example, one thing that they love, and for us it's really important, that each of our products come with a name of the woman that made it. And I remember, because again, like for us, maybe it's super cool that the jackets come and the person that buys it, it's cool to know who made it. But for them, the sense of empowerment, the sense that their hard work is being recognized in the community, because they've never even left, I don't think they've ever left the city, or like my province. So the fact that they know that they have jackets in Australia with their name on, they have jackets in the US, in Israel, in Europe, in Asia, wherever, that their name is being recognized and people appreciate that talent. I think that's huge. And that's coming back to what I was telling you earlier about their family's perception on them, and their community's perception on them. So that's huge for us, for sure. And this sense of community, it's really important aspect of the company.
And that kind of is healing one of the things that has been wrong with the garment industry all along. You've heard the expression sweatshops. Well, they still go on. So it's like you're creating this model that's very powerful. And the more successful you are, the better it is, because the more exposure you'll have and make people aware of where clothing is coming from. So what can we do as consumers? We're the consumers on this side. What can we do to make all of this work better?
Well, I think and now it's a thing that it's starting to happen, but I feel we don't really realize how much power we have as consumers. I mean, at the end of the day, we choose what we want the world to be by the things we buy. Because if you're promoting sweatshops and you're promoting companies that use this kind of manufacturing styles, and the same in food and other industries, you're at the end of the day saying, you know what, I agree with what you're doing, and here is my money to prove it. But and that's really powerful, because we don't realize that if we stop buying stuff that we don't agree with, or we don't buy things that don't align with our values, the companies are making that will have to do the switch, and will have to start really asking themselves why people are not doing, and what is the right thing to do to make this better. So I think it's really important to understand the power we have as consumers. And at the end of the day, we have to find a way of, and it's really hard for us because we're promoting the consumption of sustainable products, but at the same time you are promoting consumption, so we live in this limbo that it's pretty uncomfortable for me sometimes. Because, for example, in this, I think it's awesome that we're talking now right after the craziest day of the year, which is Black Friday, something that to me blows my mind every year. But yeah, we don't promote Black Friday, stuff like that, because you're just promoting people to buy things that they don't need just because the prices are super cheap. And I think, yeah, I just try to switch our mindsets, and understand that we don't need to buy clothes to make us feel better. We should buy things because we need them, not because we can.
And the other thing I think too, that you are educating people that if you spend $400 or $500 on something, and for some people it's a stretch, for some people it's nothing, but it's better to buy one good thing than to buy like 10 things that aren't good. And in the old days where I come from, we would do that. We would buy like beautiful leather handbags, and we wouldn't get another one the next year, because as it aged, it was more beautiful. The leather got softer and so forth. So it's a different model that people have adopted. So I think you're bringing us back to quality as opposed to quantity.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that because I think someone that really taught me that was my grandma.
Yeah.
And it was super funny because I remember going on travels with her and stuff. And I would go into H&M, you know, and buy like 20 t-shirts that of course I didn't need. But just because they were $5, I was like, wow, this is the best deal of my life. And my grandma would always buy just one thing, you know, or maybe not even buy, but everything she bought was one good thing. And I
Yeah.
was always, Grandma, why would you do that? I mean, if you could buy 20 of those, but really cheap in another store. And she was like, one day you'll understand that quality is better than quantity. And it's funny because now I always think about her whenever I do the things that I do. And I think that that really had an impact on me because I remember she always said that when I was like growing up.
But it's true. And quality things, like for instance, I have a couple of Armani jackets. Those are not inexpensive, but I'll have those the rest of my life. I've had them for a long time now. So it's that learning about what's worthwhile, you know, and the number is not the same as something that's exquisite. So I think you're on that track because I've looked at the things that you are selling, and they're beautiful. They're really lovely. So it's like your grandmother's lesson obviously sunk in.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I'm not saying people have to go out and spend what they cannot spend on just like in clothing, you know what I mean? But still, I think it's important that we're all conscious of what you said. I mean, it's way better to have one thing that is gonna last you for the rest of your life than have something really cheap that is gonna last you 3 wears and it's gonna break.
Yeah, and look terrible because
Yeah.
I mean, you know about fabric now. You maybe didn't know when you started out, but you know what really good fabric looks like, and it's different. There's a real difference between that quality. So what else do you want people to know about your company, your vision, your mission? Anything that I haven't asked you, what would you like to impart to people?
I really think we covered most of it all, like most of it, and but nothing. I think it's well, we talked a lot. I think it's important that we start doing research on what we buy and to buy what the things that we really need rather than the things that we just stop thinking that buying things make you feel better. I don't know why that's become like a thing. And yeah, I mean, question everything because I think that's how we get answers for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you again, Jose, for taking the time to do this. And I wish you so much wonderful good luck and good fortune and everything else for the Remu Apparel. So thank you, Jose, for being with us. And I wish you the best.
Thank you so much for having me, Diane. Really nice to meet you and happy holidays.
Thank you so much. And I have all of my listeners, please go and check out remuapparel.com and look for all the wise things that Jose Chiboga has told us and to remember that because those are important things. And thank you for being with Transformations, interviewing people, changing our world. And I'm your host, Diane J. Shaver, inviting you to join us again when I interview another world changer. And maybe one day I'll be interviewing you. Bye-bye.